Hello, everybody. I am Ben Coleman. I'm one of your hosts for the Florida Aviation Network, here transmitting in the clear. And as a matter of fact, we are on cable television as we speak. And if you miss it on cable, we're always going to be streaming later on down the road. And go to the website, Florida Aviation Network. And we are the official Sun and Fun television network. And we bring to you compelling stories, information, and notable characters and talents here at the show and the event. This is the 41st annual Sun and Fun Fly-In and Expo, and there's an awful lot going on, and it's been a really good week. It's been a good, safe week, and the number of the camaraderie and the people that come here to visit is just phenomenal. That's the only way to put it. And with that, we bring talent. We bring people from all over the world, all different walks of life, and believe it or not, musicians and pilots are a very similar breed of cat. And there's a guy here that's going to explain to them that to us, Ravi, as a Raviator. Ravi,
How are you, Ben?
always good to see you, my friend.
Likewise, always nice to be here.
And tell me a little bit about what's new in Ravi's world. And for those who may not know Ravi, what do? You fly airplanes.
What do I do? I evolve. Always try to find new things, always try to learn new things. And of course, aviation, as you mentioned, coming from the music industry background, aviation about 6 years ago was a new opportunity for me to learn something new. And I just fell in love with it. And now I run around the world telling people that everybody's got to learn to fly. And I really mean that. You know, whether or not you pursue it as a career or a hobby, I mean, that would be great. But even if you don't pursue it at all, learn to fly, because it changes your life and it enhances everything that you do in terms of productivity, awareness. I'm a better musician because I learned to fly an airplane. I'm a better husband because I learned to fly an airplane, simply because of what you learn about yourself when you're in the cockpit of an airplane.
And Ravi, I know that you've been asked this question many times. You've probably done some soul searching. The similarities between music and aviation, the discipline, the practice,
Yeah.
the proficiency. You don't just pick your guitar up after having not played for 6 months to a year,
Right.
and you hit the notes and you're not on your game
Right.
at just picking it up. You got to practice a little bit. Same thing in aviation.
Well, sure,
How
you
do you
do.
find that tie-in?
And there's a commitment to excellence that involves in both, and that commitment comes partly from discipline, but mostly from passion. You want to be great, and so that's a driving force, I think, behind pilots and behind musicians. But, it's amazing. 49.7% of pilots play a musical instrument. So there is a strong crossover, and as you point out, there are a lot of similarities. I actually think it's somewhat of an opposites attract issue too, whereas our industries are very different. One's a little bit more conservative, one's a little bit more liberal, and I think that the interest of aviation and music as a tie-in together is our own search for equilibrium and balance. And I think that's a lot of the reason why pilots take up music. Is it's being in a cockpit is a pretty rigid, intense situation, so it's good to relax with music as well.
Have you done any study about which is easier to transition as a pilot, or a musician,
We
or a
have fans
musician
out
to
there?
be a pilot?
No, we haven't really looked so much at that transition, although I have to say, knowing as many pilots as I do and knowing as many musicians as I do, I think it's a good thing that more pilots are learning to play music than musicians learning to fly airplanes.
That would be,
I think it's a safer bet.
groovy, man, groovy. The attention to detail, and for example, when you tune a guitar and you strung a chord, you can tell if you've got one string that's a little bit out of tone.
Yeah.
And if you're in your aircraft, what do you fly, Ravi?
I fly a little T-211, a torpedo, light sport aircraft.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Little two-seater, stick and rudder.
Can you tell when that aircraft is missing a little something here
Sure,
and there?
you feel it.
Yeah,
Of course.
you
I mean,
feel
it's just like, as you pointed out, with an instrument. You have that relationship where either the guitar or the aircraft really becomes an extension of yourself. So you become very aware of the fact that something's not right. And then, of course, what aviation teaches us how to do so well is assess what the problem is and take the time to assess properly, and then go through the routine that we practice so often of how to rectify the situation. So
Yeah, got to fix it.
got to fix it.
You got to fly a proper altitude, proper
Yeah.
heading.
Proper airspeed. Most
And
important.
how about, what are you doing, Ravi, to employ the youth to get into this?
You know, that's so much of what I do now as a as a keynote speaker in aviation. I go to all the universities. I was just at University of North Dakota a couple nights ago giving their keynote for their Parents' Weekend banquet, which was really great. It was really fun to be doing that. And to inspire youth not only to get into aviation, but to stay in aviation, because that's a key point too. You know, we've got an 80% dropout rate of student pilots. So we need to do something about keeping that 80% as well, and not just finding new blood. But it's also on a global level. You know, one of my new biggest clients is the State Department, and it's pretty cool. They send me all over the world as a cultural diplomat. I was just in Moscow and St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago, and I was in Monaco and Paris last week. And you know, I get to do these really cool things of meeting young people all around the world and talking about what we have in common. And one of the key things that we have in common is our fascination with flight. I mean, that's universal. That's humanity, right? I always say aviation is one of humanity's greatest achievements. So that's something that, like music, the world and its youth can bond over these types of things. You know, before we as adults teach them all how to hate each other.
Well, I would like to see us all get along and all agree on how we can work together to perpetuate this wonderful transportation device, or this wonderful spiritual device. If you're Kermit Weeks, it is a very much a spiritual advice from Kermit. So
well, and I think it's a nice combination of both. I mean, really, when you get up in an airplane by yourself, it is a very enlightening, spiritual, you know, whatever that means for whoever's flying, moment. Yet, as you know, we know that aviation is providing incredible career opportunities now, like it hasn't in the past 5 years. We're turning a point here, and what's very important, I think, for us as Americans to understand is that this is a global opportunity now. You know, the most demand is going to be in China and India. So there's a great opportunity for us not to be the only greatest exporter of aircraft, but to be the greatest exporter of flight instruction around the world, and to teach people, not just bring all these people here to learn to fly, because that's going to change. They're going to start to learn locally. It makes more sense. It's less expensive. We can export our expertise as a service industry of flight training.
Ravi, you've been kind of talking all around. I was hoping you were going to hit my next key word, but it's called culture.
Culture.
Tell me about how, and you already touched on it. You go to Moscow, you went to Paris, and getting out into how would somebody get a hold of you to get you on their billing for how to come and help us change or improve our culture?
Yeah, well, Raviator.com is really the best resource for learning more about me, figuring out if I'm the right match for whatever efforts one wants to make, and then to hire me, book me, to come and hopefully do some good. You know, that's what it's all about. And on a cultural level, you know, I'm very lucky. You know, I was born and raised in the USA. My father's Indian, mother's German, my wife is French. So I have a lot of international influence just by the nature of who I am. So that enables me to bridge a lot of cultural gaps for my clients and my sponsors that, you know, they otherwise might not be able to tackle.
Ravi, where's home?
Home is most of the time in Charlottesville, Virginia, but a good portion of it's in Paris, France as well now.
Okay, and as far as getting around to the nation, what would be a typical quarter? As you're jet setting around. And
well, I mean, like I said, you know, in the last 2 weeks, it's kind of a funny joke. In the last 2 weeks, I was in Moscow, St. Petersburg, Paris, Monaco. Then I went up to UND in North Dakota, and now I'm here in Florida. And that's just in 2 weeks. I was telling that story to some people down here, and a woman said, "Oh, my husband's going to be so jealous. He's always wanted to go to North Dakota."
Paris, Moscow, no, North Dakota. That's the place to be.
There's a lot of cool stuff in North Dakota.
You can also talk jet lag too, can you?
Yeah, you know, although at this point it just doesn't make a difference. I don't look at my watch anymore.
But you got to admit now, every now and then you say, where am I today?
You know, and that was back in my touring days in the music industry when I was with Hanson. We were the top selling band in the world at the time, and we had to go, you know, we were doing sometimes 2-3 cities across the country in a day. Like New York in the morning, Minneapolis in the afternoon, and LA at night. That wasn't unusual. And it did get to the point, and this is happening again now, where I wake up in the hotel room, I look for the welcome book. It's like, where am I? I don't remember, you know, or you know, run around the wrong floor in a hotel because it was from the night before. You know?
Or you roll out of the bed into the wall rather than into the walkway.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, But I love it. I mean, I'm a real proponent of going out and seeing the world, and I want to do it as much as I can. I think everybody should. There's no greater education, in my opinion, than travel.
And I believe on a global scale, we really have a lot more in common than we do have in opposition. But people seem to grow on the opposition
Well, see,
and develop and dwell on that.
and this is my role as a cultural diplomat with the State Department. Simply saying, people and people are one thing, people in politics are another.
Yeah.
So there is a difference, and you're absolutely right. People bond and have so much more in common, than perhaps our political differences would lead us to believe.
Yeah, well, we'll leave the politics out of this and all the political correctness, because
Yeah.
sometimes that can really get in the way of learning and creating this culture of helping our youth understand and find their niche, their role in life. And this is what I see you doing, is out working on that role.
Yeah, well, it's really, you do want to inspire the youth to really be good stewards. Not just as Americans, but as humans.
Sure.
Not just as aviators, but as humans.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah, we should be good stewards of our values and of being kind to one another. It's kind of basic stuff, right? It should be natural, but somehow we've got to work on that.
Well, let's do it. We'll
Let's
help
do
you.
it.
Ravi, thanks so much for
Ben,
your time.
always a pleasure.
Oh, I didn't get a good, there we go. That's a better
There we
grip
go.
there. It's always a pleasure to have you, you know that. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
close it off, just relax.
All right.
We'll see you on the next interview, and again, please see if you can get a chance to come see us at Sun and Fun, and always stay tuned to Florida Aviation Network. There's things going on all over the country and the world that we're going to try to bring to you. Stay with us. I'm Ben Coleman, one of your hosts. See you next interview.